Let me take you back in time. During the summer of 2021, while World of Warcraft players who were disillusioned with Shadowlands began turning their attention to Final Fantasy XIV, Jesse Cox published a video titled 15 Years of WoW versus 1 Year of FF14. Everyone with a camera and a microphone rushed to react to the video, insisting on offering their 2 cents. It was the centerpiece of the MMO community's interest for the better part of 2 or 3 hours. It's a great video for sure, but Jesse said something in that video that inspired unanimous applause, but that I disagree with. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, while Final Fantasy XIV is an RPG MMO. This sentiment was clever enough to become gospel truth in the MMO space on YouTube. As a matter of fact, I've seen this line repeated in the comments of my own videos over and over again. While I understand what Jesse Cox was trying to communicate, I do not believe that Final Fantasy XIV qualifies as an RPG relative to the MMO genre. Quite frankly, I'd argue that it's closer to a visual novel, but we'll get into the details later. Listen, I understand that you're already preparing to disagree with me vehemently and to dislike my video into another dimension, but I implore you to hear me out. The definition of what constitutes an RPG has become more difficult to define in the last decade. Gameplay features that we would typically associate with RPGs, such as a leveling framework and equipment with variable strengths, can be found in third-person action titles like God of War or Assassin's Creed or Spider-Man. The term RPG has been diluted beyond recognition, so how would we go about defining it? Today's video, therefore, is about defining RPG as it relates to MMOs. I've gone ahead and compiled a series of characteristics that I believe are required in order for a game to qualify as an RPG. I'll explain to you what those are and why I don't think that 14 deserves the title of RPG MMO that the community has been happy to grant it. A few things before we get to that discussion, however. First of all, this is just an opinion piece. It is highly likely that you'll disagree with me by the end of the video, no matter how succinctly or reasonably I present my case. That's okay, we're here to have fun and talk about a genre that we love. Second of all, you'll only get my opinion at the end of the video. In order to rope down the definition of an RPG as it relates to the MMO genre, I've elicited the help of a couple of MMO content creators to offer me their own definitions. Perhaps as a collaborative effort, we can find a true definition and put this issue firmly to rest, but probably not. Final order of business, let's take 10 seconds to thank today's sponsor, me. Here's the pitch. All of my videos 2 days early and ad-free for only $1 a month on Patreon. Go check it out. Now, for our first submission, I'd like to introduce you to RedbeardFlynn, a content creator who I've grown to enjoy quite a lot in recent months. I'll let him take it away.
Oh, cool. It's yet another chance for anyone who really likes Star Wars: The Old Republic or Final Fantasy XIV to have a reason not to like me. It's nice to meet you all. My name is RedbeardFlynn, and I started making content on MMOs about 3 years ago, and I've been playing them long enough to have really crippling knee pain and back pain. Embers Arcade asked me to answer a question that will certainly not cause any terse discussion at all, because that's not something the MMORPG landscape is known for at all, is it? What does the RPG part of an MMORPG mean? Well, shit, Embers, when I tried to discuss this with my friends, we got into such a talking circle about it, just talking about what RPG means, that we literally said that Pong was an RPG because the paddle grows, it's progression. That's just to say it's difficult to say because there's a lot of gray areas around these descriptions. And it really becomes a bit of personal taste in some ways. And I think so, why not? Here's my bullshit opinion on the thing. RPG elements in an MMO are inextricably tied to the massively part for me. That means things like personal story and world impact kind of go out the window. I'm not looking for Baldur's Gate 3 level interactions and consequences. That shifts more towards a world narrative, something we'll get to here in a moment. The RPG elements that are the most important for me are tied to function and mechanics instead. Growth of your character, leveling up, gaining power, getting new items, essentially advancement. I think it is one of the most important parts of an MMORPG, character progression. It's also why I've struggled to conceptualize horizontal progression systems, because they break from the tradition of vertical progression, which isn't just a part of MMORPGs and RPGs, but even tabletop RPGs as well. It doesn't preclude the inclusion of horizontal progression, just that the absence of the vertical is kind of a non-starter for me. I also really need the character customization part to be personal. I think it's even more important in an MMO than in an RPG. In an MMO, you are entering a world, or as EverQuest and other MMOs have said, a living, breathing world. If I'm entering the world as Geralt of Rivia 001, right next to Geralt of Rivia 003, 002, and 0069, well then shit, that immersion is kind of broken for me. I am no longer the character that I'm creating. There's no role for me to play. There is a meta role to play. So we've got character customization and character advancement as the two most important things for me in an MMO for the RPG side of it. But there's one last thing that I think is important, and this is kind of what I was getting at in the beginning when I was talking about people that really like Final Fantasy XIV and Star Wars: The Old Republic getting mad at me. Because we're going to talk about single player stories and world narratives. RPGs have a story, one where you are usually at the center. In an MMO, we've seen this in various ways. Games that center you and ask you to forget that other players are also being centered in their own story. Essentially an RPG within the MMO, like Elder Scrolls Online, Star Wars: The Republic, Final Fantasy XIV, etc. These games require a sort of cognitive dissonance as you load out of your emotional instance into a horde of other people still wiping their tears away from their own emotional instance. And probably a couple people trolling around at the same time, it just kind of being annoying as people do in MMOs. And sorry Embers, this opinion may contrast specifically with your audience. I personally prefer MMOs that take the focus away from you and move it towards the world story, like EverQuest, Star Wars Galaxies, Ultima Online. I'm quite literally just saying old as hell MMOs. So I guess perhaps somewhere in between World of Warcraft, because it's kind of depending on where you're at. World of Warcraft is old too. That's 2004. I'm just old. There's a simple way to put this though. In an RPG, a solo RPG, I expect to influence the world. In an MMORPG, I expect the world to influence me. Cheers, Embers. Thank you so much for putting this together. I really appreciate it, and I am honored and humbled to be a part of this. Thank you again so much. Ember's quality is top notch, so thank you for letting me sully it just a little bit with my little snippet here. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Shout out to RedbeardFlynn for putting in way more effort than I expected with this little project. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's start at the top. The two key words that Flynn presented as a framework were function and mechanics, or as he put it, character progression. Most of you watching this, and Flynn himself, might be surprised to find that I agree wholeheartedly with the notion that Final Fantasy XIV barely qualifies as an RPG. Even within the confines of the Final Fantasy XIV franchise, there are entries with stronger examples of RPG elements at play. While 14 technically includes character progression, there are levels, pieces of equipment with variable strengths, materia slots to further customize that equipment, and so on. It does so with a degree of low commitment and low gameplay feedback. Therein lies, in my opinion, another layer to what Flynn puts forward in his definition of RPG. Vertical progression is what makes a role-playing game more than simply role-playing in a game. In addition, that vertical progression must require some commitment from the player to acquire, which is then expressed afterwards via gameplay feedback. If these two elements aren't present, then they cannot qualify, in my opinion at least. Let me give you an example of this concept. While my roster isn't exactly fantastic in Lost Ark, I have this Glavier who I play as an alt. I recently managed to score some of her best level 5 tripods along with completing her basic entropy set and getting some of the best runes to augment her abilities. This character is still woefully behind, but I made progress with her this week that I can visibly notice during gameplay. This is what a role-playing game should look like. Conversely, I've been working on a huge video on Final Fantasy XIV's nightlife, you know, the bars and clubs and hidden places which play host of behaviors which will go unspoken. Here's a quick preview. None of these people are playing a role-playing game. They're listening to a self-described DJ on Twitch who's just broadcasting a playlist on Spotify while they watch their characters perform an animation loop. They are role-playing in a game. See the difference? Now before we go further, let's hear from our second guest, SawmanUK, who has a different take altogether.
Yes, the age-old question of how would one define a RPG? Well, let's break it down, shall we? First we have the letter R, which stands for role. And then we have P, as in playing. And then of course G, as in game. But how does this relate to the MMORPG genre, you might be wondering? Well, the simple answer is this. It doesn't. Well, I mean, it kind of does. An RPG for me is a game where you assume the role of the main character. This is about you and your journey. Typically there'll be some sort of skill tree or you'll level up, but most importantly there's an immersive story. So if we whack on MMO in front of RPG, we're just talking about doing this in a multiplayer setting. Although technically in this day and age RPG can refer to many games. For example, GTA 5 Online is a massively multiplayer online game. You assume the role of a criminal in a story arc, and there's progression. So therefore, is GTA 5 a MMORPG? A lot of you be laughing and saying, of course not. But it does meet all the criteria. So, an MMORPG in this day and age is kind of watered down. RPG can refer to so many different things that at this point it's just an acronym to describe a big multiplayer game. But if you had to push me for an answer, it just means there's a main story quest that you can follow, whilst being massively multiplayer and online.
Sawman brings up something interesting here, which is that the RPG aspect of an MMO means that there is a main story quest which is experienced by a collective player base in a multiplayer environment. Flynn was more keen on function and mechanics, but Sawman's argument that a narrative force is required to fulfill the definition of an RPG in an MMO setting is actually essential to parse out which games do or do not qualify as MMORPGs. For example, we could look at Call of Duty and give it the RPG label, couldn't we? There's character customization and vertical progression, all of which are expressed in your moment-to-moment gameplay and experienced in a massively multiplayer environment. The differentiator here is that unlike The Elder Scrolls Online, Lost Ark, World of Warcraft, or Final Fantasy XIV, among many others, there is no unifying narrative throughline which is experienced by the player base. This is a compelling argument since even the most function-focused MMOs like Lost Ark still spend extensive resources on narrative presentation. The world must be a character and it has to offer some semblance of narrative context to your gameplay. Otherwise, it can't qualify as an RPG, even if the quality of that narrative is almost always terrible. World of Warcraft. Now it's my turn. How do I define RPG in relation to MMOs? Remember that Jesse Cox video that I mentioned at the start? The one that coined and popularized the term RPG MMO to describe Final Fantasy XIV? While I don't think that the term accurately represents 14, I do like it as a template for defining the genre as a whole. I can't say whether or not the order of the letters in the acronym MMORPG suggests a hierarchy of importance, but if it does, then it should be structured as RPG MMO instead. Because I think that the RPG section is more important than the MMO section. Like Flynn argued, in order for a game to be an RPG in this genre, then it should have a primary focus on a perpetual feedback loop which converts time and investment into proportionately rewarding gameplay. If I had to boil down my definition into a single sentence, then that's what it would be. In this way, Final Fantasy XIV fails completely, while a game like Lost Ark, despite its bad reputation, more closely fits the bill. The degree to which my time investment in 14 can be converted into progression is infinitesimal compared to the same measurement in Lost Ark. Of course, in a similar vein to Sawman's definition, that feedback loop must be enshrined within a narrative framework which inspires intrinsic motivation to play the game. This is where Final Fantasy XIV shines. The game's story gives the player a powerful why to every activity, which is crucial in an RPG. Otherwise, these games would be menu surfers for the purpose of function fulfillment. You might as well go play Cookie Clicker. All of this, of course, must be contained within a persistent digital ecosystem that supports a player presence which dwarfs the average. While Genshin Impact, for example, has millions of concurrent players worldwide and boasts many of the same features as your run-of-the-mill MMO, it cannot support more players in one space than the average online game can. I'd wager that for most online games, that range sits somewhere between 8 to 16 players. An MMORPG should be able to host many more than that. So, there you have it. Weeks ago, I began to wonder whether or not MMOs were RPGs anymore. Somehow that brought me here, offering some contention to the popular dogma of Final Fantasy XIV being a supposed RPG MMO, and even asking for help to figure out what RPG even means. A humongous shout out to RedbeardFlynn and SawmanUK for taking the time to be a part of this project. I'll link their channels in the description. Please show them all the love you can muster. If you disagree with any of the perspectives that we put forward, then please leave a comment below. I read them all, I respond to most, and I love a good debate. Feel free to leave your feedback in the form of a like or a dislike. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for more MMORPG content. Remember, you can get all of my videos 2 days early and ad-free for only $1 a month on Patreon. Minding my manners, of course. Thanks for watching.